Yes, everybody, and welcome back to another daily drop brought to you by TarHeelIllustrated.com. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We're going to talk about them a little bit later on in the show, so stay tuned for that. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me as he always does, it's our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, Carolina had another open football practice, the second of fall camp, on Tuesday afternoon. You were there, got to observe a lot of it. I know the Tez Walker news kind of dominated the headlines and everything out of that, which you guys didn't, realize until Mac and Lonnie Galloway talked about it in front of you. But still, open practice, observations, things that you got to see there in person that's incredibly valuable, especially early on in fall camp and going into the new season. So we'll start on offense. I like to kind of space these out a little bit just so it's easier to follow. Any observations or things that stood out that you can let us in on offensively from the Tar Heels?
Stood out. Yeah. George Pettaway went first in the running back drills. And by the time that you get about a week into fall camp, you can always gauge something on the order guys are in when they do drills in the various position groups. But certainly once you get a week in, and he was first in all the drills I saw, and I didn't see every drill for running backs because I'm bouncing around going to different position groups, but I watched several, and he was first. Behind him was Omarion Hampton, Elijah Green, Caleb Hood, British Brooks, and then Jordan Louis. So I thought that was interesting. That might mean something. It might not. My history in doing this for many, many years tells me that means something. At least it meant something on August 8th. So does that mean that will translate to September 2nd? We'll have to find out September 2nd. But I do think that's something to keep an eye on because they need to sort out that running back room. And Pettaway is a guy who's immensely talented. I thought when you and I saw him a couple of years ago in the COVID year at camp, first time we saw him at camp up in Virginia Beach area, and he struck me right away as a guy that just had a lot of the markings of Michael Carter.
Yeah. Reminded me a lot of him, yeah.
And another thing to keep an eye on, too, is that this offense under Chip Lindsey is going to throw more to the backs. So if you look at that room, the guy in that room that is probably the best receiving back and most equipped to handle that role, it would be George Pettaway. Elijah Green in high school played in high school and never threw the ball. It took him 2 years to figure out how to run routes and pass block. And I say that only half jokingly. It took him a while, but he got it eventually. But Pettaway, I think, is naturally suited for that kind of role. I think he's a guy that you can get him a lot of touches on little screens and treat that as toss sweeps without having to take the time to toss and all that kind of, the quarterback on a toss sweep takes a couple steps and then he pitches the ball. I guess toss sweeps are a long time ago. We don't do them as much now in college football, but that screen play can be used with that. Yeah. So that stood out. A couple of the things that stood out as well is that Christian Hamilton, true freshman wide receiver, looks very confident out there. Chris Culliver also, but Hamilton really kind of has popped. I've seen practice twice now, and he's popped both times. Offensively, Travion Green, I watched him a lot on the offensive line on Tuesday. He's such a massive dude. I tweeted out a picture of him. I was about 10 feet away, took a picture, and I actually had to back up to make sure his whole body got my phone.
Yeah, he's massive.
He's a big dude, and he's good, and the staff thinks that he's got first-round potential. So what does he do now? He has to climb a lot of steps to get to that point. So where is he in that step climbing process? I don't know, but he looked pretty good. They were working a lot on, and they've spent a lot of time under Randy Clements on balance. And to be more physical, you have to have great balance. People think, well, to be more violent, be more physical, you just got to hit guys and just drive through them and be more physical and scream and yell and all that kind of stuff. You have to be able to maintain engagement on the offensive line, and especially in pass protection. In pass protection, you're in balance mode. So you have to have really good use of your hands, but you have to stay balanced. If you stay balanced, you can stay engaged. That means more physicality. Engage means when you're locked in with a guy, you're blocking. And I thought that he looked pretty good in some of the stuff I saw there. He's a big man. He's almost 6'8", 340 pounds or whatever it is. But it looked like there was an improvement from before with him. And also Diego Pounds, too. Diego Pounds got some work with the ones, a lot of work with the starters in the inside run drill. And I think part of it is that they're going to get him on the field. They have to get him on the field. They got to get Green on the field. They have to build depth for next year because they're going to lose some of these guys. They also have to make sure these guys get on the field so they don't leave. They don't get disgruntled and hit the portal. So that's part of it as well. You have to handle things a little differently now when you're a coach than you had to 5 years ago because that carrot is out there. So I would say on the positive, those are some of the things that jumped out at me about the offense.
That's good. Real quickly, because I want to ask you, you were talking O-line, and I know this is a guy that a lot of Carolina fans talk about and are curious about because of how highly rated he was. Any insight or observations on Zach Rice at all? And the only reason I'm asking you is because he's a hot topic amongst Carolina.
Yeah, I watched him too, and I've been told by a source inside the program that Zach lost some weight, he trimmed down a little bit quicker. Consistency is a thing for him that he's trying to work on. I think he needs to be a little bit more of a road grader if he's going to be a guard. So he needs to develop that more. He didn't have to do that in high school. And that's the thing about linemen. It's so hard to project linemen watching them in high school, especially offensive line, because sometimes you just throw guys around like rag dolls. And that's what Zach did. Zach used to tweet out about his pancake blocks, but I'm like, okay, well, you should be pancake blocking guys all the time, you know? Look at you and look at them. So he's learning how to become a college offensive guard, offensive lineman. And he's learning all the different things that you have to carry out in the field every time. You have to go onto the field with a disposition that is unlike any other, because when you play on the offensive line, generally speaking, you're guaranteed contact on every snap. And usually head contact. Now, not as much as back in the old days when we all tracked death marks, but you're still having contact. And I know you laugh when I talk about that all the time, but I do, because I just want to see death marks, to be honest with you. When I go to practice, I wish that they would have one group wear a different color helmet just so I could see the death marks on the helmets. But that's what I saw from Zach. He looked a little quicker. He had good balance. They had this one drill, and I have a video that we're going to run at some point, where it was a two-man sled, but only one player hitting it. So the whole point was to turn the sled. And you just start the next part of the drill wherever the sled is. And that's great, because you're supposed to drive it one way, so you drive it that way. And the sled ends up there, whistle blows, next guy goes up. He looked pretty good with that. I like the balance. I really like Travion Green's balance, though. I think that that's something that if he doesn't have great balance, he won't be an NFL guy. If he has great balance, he will be an NFL guy, kind of thing. And it looked like the balance is in process.
Yeah, and that's positive, because Carolina definitely needs more depth on that offensive line. We've talked about that ad nauseum over the last 2 years, really. So anybody that can step up in that room and show some potential is obviously a positive for the offense as a whole. So we'll move on to defense 1 second, AJ. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. The show is sponsored by BetterHelp. And sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices, tough decisions, and the path forward isn't always clear. It isn't always easy to figure out what your next move should be. So whether you're dealing with decisions around career, maybe relationship, it doesn't really matter what it is. Anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want in life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. And trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, just like the more you practice a sport, the easier and better you get at it. So I know for me sometimes, and I've said this on previous podcasts, but I'm saying it because it's true. I benefit from talking things out. If I'm nervous or worried about something or going through something in my life, I talk to my wife about it. I talk to my family about it. It helps me feel better about it. But I also have started talking to a trained professional about it as well, because you can get a ton of clarity in your life when you do that. I know it's helped me tremendously as well. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule, so you can do it anytime, anywhere, any place. If you have a computer, you are good to go. So just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime, no charge. So if you don't like who you're working with for the first couple of sessions, you can try someone new and they're not going to charge anything like that, as it should be. So they're prioritizing your mental health and making sure that you're getting the benefit out of your service and not just locking you into something where you got to pay for something that's not really working for you. That's not how it works here at BetterHelp. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THI. Links in the description below to get 10% off your first month. betterhelp.com/THI. Links in the description below. And a big thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast in Daily Drop. AJ, we're going to switch over to defensively now. What stood out defensively? Because that's we've talked about it, AJ. That's where the question marks are at going into the season. That's where the concern has been at for the last 5 years. When is this defense going to improve? When is this defense going to become a good defense? That's what people want to know. Anything that stood out defensive wise, you can let us in on.
Des Evans has stood out to me.
Mm.
And usually we think in terms of maybe younger guys standing out a little bit more. They got bigger. Des is bigger. We talked to him after practice on Monday, and just in watching drills in the first practice and seeing him walk off the field after some other practices when we go in there for interviews, just look bigger. Well, he's up to 275, so that's been confirmed. And just standing next to him, talking to him the other day, his arms, everything's bigger. And he's got sort of a new attitude. He missed time last year. Football was taken away for a while, and that's the first time I think he's ever been hurt. So he had to think about a lot of things. And I think the commitment and the inner burn is there now. I'm not saying it wasn't there before, but sometimes you lose something and you get it back, you appreciate it a little bit more. Maybe you make the best of it a little bit more. And I saw him work his butt off in practice. I saw a guy who, when he arrived, wasn't vocal at all. Never made any noise. And I saw a guy who was vocal. I watched some defensive end drills. Hand placement is really good. That's important. Being stronger to deal with offensive tackles and getting to the quarterback. It's not, you just can't outskill them. I think Des has tried to outskill a lot in his career. Now he understands that maybe you could just run them over too. Maybe you can beat them to the quarterback. You can have encroachment that goes through the offensive tackle. I think that we're going to see a little bit more of that from him. So he's definitely jumped out. Amari Campbell, backup linebacker, true freshman. He's going to be good. Staff loves him.
That's really positive because they need linebacker depth like no other.
Talking to people off the record, he's going to get on the field. He's going to play some. Some other guys. I'm going to pull out DJ Jones just for a minute, not because DJ is going to get on the field much, but he is playing a lot of star, and he's such a positive in that room because he works his what off, and he's such a positive guy, and he's a lead by example guy. Even if he doesn't get on the field much at all this year because he's not spending any time at running back right now, he's going to make everybody better because of that. And he actually made plays one day when I'm watching, and I'm thinking, okay, DJ, you're making it happen over there. And I think that's what this team needs. You need guys like that. You need guys that will give of them. They'll go from running back to a reserve role on defense to make everybody better, not just because they're practicing against the offense, but the vibe they give off to everybody around them. I think that's really important. That's what they talk about, culture. That's part of culture. So I have to give him a little bit of a props because I'm pretty impressed by that. Very quickly, a few other guys that have stood out. Elijah Huzzy's the real deal. Marcus Allen has got so many skills. He's a guy that was way underappreciated in high school. And I'll tell you what, keep an eye on Tayon Holloway. He didn't get on the field all last year, redshirt freshman corner, especially with Legend Cavazos out for a while now. Tayon was already ahead of him. I was told by a source in the program that Tayon was the third corner behind Allen and Huzzy. So he's ahead of Armani Chapman, who played 2,000 snaps at Virginia Tech, and was ahead of Cavazos. So keep an eye on Tayon Holloway. The other thing is Travis Shaw's slimmer. Travis Shaw's quicker. Travis Shaw's going to get into it in inside drill with people. And he's a guy that's going to give them more snaps because I think his stamina will allow him to stay on the field for an 8-play drive now, when last year he would come off after 4 plays. So there's a lot of good things about the defense as individual parts, but does it come together? Is the scheme the right scheme? Do they execute the scheme properly? Do they communicate and pre-snap properly? Those are all things that are very, very important that we'll have to wait and see. But there are some really bright spots on that side of the ball as individuals.
And that's exactly what Carolina fans want to hear. Sidebar real quick. Travis Shaw is absolutely my favorite person. I know you got a lot of people know I do like shoot the pregame videos before us when I'm at games. So, all the home games essentially and some of the road games.
He likes the camera.
Oh man. And he's great because he's almost funny because he kind of talks to himself by himself to kind of hype himself up. I forgot what he was saying to himself one time, but he was basically talking to himself, like right when they were huddling up, just, start warming up when they do the little, get rah-rahed up and everything like that. And just kind of, you're the man, they can't stop you. And he was talking to himself like that. And it was fantastic. I think I ended up getting it on camera. I'm not sure how well you could hear it, but he is a guy that you not only physically see why he was so highly rated and so highly touted, but even the way he approaches the game and in the mindset and just the way he plays out there. I think he is shaping up to have a really good season. I think he's taking things more seriously, slimmed down, which is a lot better, and just matured as an individual, which is exactly.
There's no doubt.
Yeah, and that's
he's
huge.
Getting high marks. He's getting high marks in all those areas. Two other players, let me throw at you real quickly here. Miles Murphy's healthy. He's looked quicker.
That's huge. He's
been so much quicker the 2 times I've seen him at practice the last week than he ever was last season. And Bo Atkinson. It looks like he's ahead of Jacoby Cowan right now as the 3rd defensive end. He looks the part. He's long, but he's agile. He was a tight end in high school, very productive tight end in high school. You could see it with the footwork. I think he's played other sports as well. I like him. I think he's going to get on the field some this year, and eventually he's going to be a regular over there, get a ton of snaps. He's going to help this program out, and it might be this year. I like the length that they have at that spot at end too. And by the way, Richie's over there. I haven't mentioned Richie too much because he's kind of what I thought he would be. And he could play inside, he could play outside. There's a lot of multiplicity with him. But he's a guy that I think they're expecting big things from this year. Just nothing has popped in practice because he's kind of what I thought he would be. Mm-hmm. Some of the people that pop are sort of popping above what my expectations were, which is why I note them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The fact that Ritzy is doing what you expected him to do is a positive in itself again. And so that's good. And again, I think I think Carolina's defense should be improved. I think based on some of the things we're seeing, there's reasons to believe it should be much improved going to the new season. We still got to wait. Got to see what happens on September 2nd and following after that. But a lot of positives on the defensive side of the ball and obviously on the offensive side of the ball as well. So AJ, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Another edition of our daily drop series. And again, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com/THI to save 10% on your first month. Start taking mental health more seriously. It needs to be taken more seriously in this country and in this world that we live in now. And hopefully by us just promoting it a little bit, we can help shed a little bit more light on that. And again, 10% off using BetterHelp.com/THI. Links in the description below. Make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure you subscribe, and hit that notification bell too, because we're uploading a ton this time of year, and we'll be continuing to do so as we dive into the season. Appreciate y'all watching, guys. See you on the next. Thanks.